So, Francis, bear in mind this week is Mental Health Awareness Week, and
Yep.
I think the topic was going to be sleep, but they've now changed it to kindness, which feels kind of right at the moment with everything that's going on, and people are very aware of, well, much more aware of how they're responding to each other, and how people are helping each other and supporting each other, particularly like volunteering and so on. I think it's an interesting topic for us to discuss. And I was reflecting on it yesterday because it hit me yesterday actually about how for me with kindness there's that sense of expecting everyone to still be superhuman in all this situation going on. And I had a couple of days ago I was doing a webinar, and I got to a point of I think I looked at my clock to check something, and that this kind of disorientated my thinking when I was talking about something else. And then I was like garbling over my words going, oh no, it's not that, it's something else. And because someone then fed back to me that I should have that stuff straight if I'm doing a webinar, I took that very personally and was very critical of myself, and then had that whole doubt, and then I kind of questioned everything I've done in the whole webinar, and the value of what I offer, and maybe I was not cut out to do any of this stuff. And you have that whole cycle. And you know what? And actually, it was only through talking to someone else, I was like, well, it can't really be that bad, that I was then started thinking, I've got to be kind to myself. Actually, I'm really tired at the moment with homeschooling, and with my husband hasn't been very well, and just trying to still to work as normal. And actually, yes, I was human and I'm not slick and all super polished and perfect. And actually, I've got to be kind to myself and just go, actually, I'm okay. I'm doing an okay job. And and that's why I reached out to you and said, actually, we just need to talk about this, because I know this is something you're really passionate about as well.
Yes. So I think what you describe in your story is very common for modern day life, where most of us are juggling so many things at any one time. And often in coaching sessions, people say, I just feel like I'm juggling all the time, and I can't even tell how many things I'm juggling, because I've even lost track of what the things are.
Yeah.
And what that drives, that inability, or that not having some time to think, reflect, pause, kind of know what you're doing, being so stretched all the time with your foot flat on the gas, means you have no bandwidth and remaining. You have no resources left to apply when something else drops in. You just can't do it all. And then what happens is, because we're so stressed and tired, is the inner critic kicks in and says to you, you'll be a failure if you don't do this, so you'd better do it. How can you be so useless? All the things that you're experiencing. And that, of course, makes you feel really panicked. You get a lot of adrenaline and cortisol, because that's the job of the inner critic, is to drive you that little bit harder. So I think when talking about kindness, I think actually what would be great in terms of being kind to ourselves is to unwind a little of that pace, just not set such high expectations of ourselves and others, and to think about, how might I say no to a few things? How might I slow down on a few things? What if we didn't have to grow everything by 15% this year, this month, this quarter? What if I could do a little bit less, and therefore be able to be more at my best, but also be able to notice what's going on for other people, and be able to demonstrate a bit of kindness and tolerance and resilience and so on towards them. My fear in all of this is that kindness becomes something that HR do a survey about. We have a kindness questionnaire, and soon there'll be a competence, and there'll be a whole lot of ways to measure ourselves on kindness.
We'll start measuring each other.
Now we've got an agenda for kindness.
But I think it's really interesting, that whole point about actually we need to be kind to ourselves and push ourselves less. But that only works if we're working with people who are also kind towards us. And it's all very well to say, actually, I'm not going to be perfect, or I'm going to do less, or I'm going to take some time out, whatever. But if you are your colleagues or your managers or whatever saying they still have that kind of bottom line, I still need this doing by this date, and they're still pushing for it, and there's no flexibility, there's no understanding, there's no empathy, then actually you can't be kind to yourself. You've got to be part of a bigger system, hasn't it? And there's also knowing that limit.
Yeah, it's that systemic perspective that's important. What flexion can we build in our system, in our team, so that we can take the pace off in some areas periodically to allow the system itself to breathe and to be at its healthiest. So we talk about mental health. I think we need to talk about systemic fitness. So when you learn to do your Pilates or your sit-ups or, you know, whatever physical training you do, one of the first things you do is learn to stretch your muscles a bit more and create a bit more capacity for expansion. That's what we need in systems. And in order to do that, you have to stretch and release. But we are stretching and stretching and stretching and stretching until everything is so tight. You can hear it in people's voices when I talk to coaching clients sometimes, I can hear the tightness in how they're speaking.
Exactly.
And that
I think
perspective is what's needed, that conversation. Yeah.
And I think that's the part of that as well, is about being able to have within that culture, about being able to say, you know, be very kind to other people and help them protect themselves. It's also about not taking everything on yourself. So some people are in that situation of being too demanding, too challenging, and push, and want to eke every little bit of energy I can out of you. And then you've got other people who, I've had a couple of conversations with people this week where they are taking on everyone else's issues, and they're taking on everyone else's problems, and they're soaking it up like a sponge because they want to be that kind person who's there all the time, but they don't have the skills to be able to manage that in a way that feels okay for them. So I'm here anytime you want to call me, and then they've got people on the phone all the time, and two people I was speaking to this week are on the verge of kind of overload because they've got their own stuff going on, and they're just taking on everyone else's, and they don't have the ability at the moment to be able to park that or deal with that in a way to help the other person, but that doesn't impact negatively on them. So I've been helping people identify how to still show kindness, but in a way that is kind to you and has those kind of barriers around, those boundaries around, I've still got to look after me. I've got to be okay, because if I'm not okay, then I can't be okay for anyone else.
And that's why I think in conversation, so when we do team coaching, we talk about how do we contract for that? How do we discuss as a team what is likely to happen that will overload us, and how we can build into our systemic ways of working together something that gives us an opportunity to breathe, to know when our colleagues are absolutely at their best and shouldn't be disturbed, they should keep running, and other times actually we need to pull on the reins a bit and say let's slow down on something a bit.
Which only comes from having those conversations, doesn't it, about
conversation.
It always comes back to the whole communication thing, like what helps people be at their best, like how am I showing I appreciate what they're doing, or am I just asking for more and more and more, or do they know that I recognize their strengths and actually I recognize everything they're trying to do, even though it's really challenging. And
so I think something to consider right now is for people to be preparing and planning to get somebody to help them to have that quite difficult conversation with their teams, where they have deliverables and all the stuff and all the unknowns, and how are we going to work together that is going to work better in the future, where we're going to need even greater flexibility. That session, I think, would be well worthwhile.
Yeah, and I think that's something that people can get in touch with us about, and we can support that journey, whether that's individually or as groups.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Frances.